Now listen, if you're the kind of person who thinks adding Coke to a 15-year-old single malt is acceptable, you might just be the reason this podcast exists. Welcome to the Non-Chill Filtered Podcast, where we unpack whiskey like it's emotional baggage.
What's up, guys? Jez here from Non-Chill Filtered. I have the lovely gents from Prohibition Gin on. I'm actually excited to have you guys on. It's I've been seeing your product everywhere. I've tried it at the where was it? I think it might have been the Canberra Gin Festival.
That would make sense.
And yeah, it's like, I guess, dominating the branding on gin. I've like, if I'm seeing it everywhere, it must be good. So, gents, if you want to give yourselves a quick introduction.
Sure. So I'm Adam. Prohibition started in my backyard all those years ago, almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And this is Hugh, our head distiller.
Hello. Lovely to touch base.
Yeah, so we're sitting here right in front of Hugh's office, actually.
That's it.
And what a cool office it is. I am jealous. I don't have an office that looks anywhere as cool as that.
Yeah, it's got some good artwork on the wall, right? It's
bit of blank. So yes, our distillery is here in Adelaide CBD, so we're right in the city, and have been here for heading towards 8 years.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so the brand started in 2015. We've had the tasting room here since 2017, and yeah, I've been producing here as well in the heart of the Adelaide CBD. Every single drop comes out of the still behind us.
And we also have a production facility out in the Barossa Valley now, out at Sepersfield, on the winery precinct in the old 150-year-old Sepersfield distillery.
There's actually a really cool spot to be distilling. I really want to touch on that in a second, but how did you guys actually land on Prohibition? Because myself coming from
winding back to 2015, when we first sort of started talking about doing this, we did a bit of research around the gin industry at the time, and it was this notion of gin was really starting to boom in 2015. Even in Australia, it was sort of early days of craft gin. But we look back in the history of gin, and when was the last time it had such a boom? And it was back in Prohibition. So we really sort of started delving into what it was during that time that made gin so popular. It was a lot to do with convenience. It was easy to make. It was fast to make, and it was because so much gin was being produced at the time. Around the time of speakeasies, the golden era of cocktails started to emerge, which is why so many of our classic cocktails these days are still gin based, is because of what happened during Prohibition. So we had this sort of boom of gin uptake back then. There was the speakeasy bar culture, golden era of cocktails, and a lot of sort of really interesting mythology around that time, around what happened with alcohol. Even though it was illegal, it certainly didn't stop people drinking. So this notion of bringing people what they wanted, whether it was legal or not, was quite a interesting and fun notion to work with.
Absolutely. I mean, the thematic ties you can pull on it, the kind of the different coming togethers of people and from different backgrounds was a really exciting thing for us. And I suppose the thematic possibilities makes for a really strong brand to kind of tease out over the years.
Yeah, it's a lot to work with. I'm a branding person, so it's a hell of a lot to work with in that sort of time frame. And then I guess from there it was really when we're overseas and we're talking about Prohibition, they say, oh well, it was an American thing. Did you ever have Prohibition in Australia? Interestingly, I always call on the fact that yes, we did in Canberra back in the day, but I always throw away a bit of a line. Are you based in Canberra, Jess?
No, Sydney-based.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, it's pretty much they
Quite a few then.
pretty much chipped away into New South Wales. So I don't really want to claim them, but they're pretty much in us.
So my throwaway line is always, yes, we had Prohibition in Canberra back in the 20s, but it didn't last very long because we're Australians and we wouldn't put up with it, and not that many people go to Canberra anyway. So yeah, sorry, Canberra. We do love our Canberra fans.
Of course, especially if they're signing the bill to kind of lower these taxes we're all paying.
Oh, that's exactly it.
Yes, and we do send a lot of tax money into Canberra.
Oh, I think that's why their salaries are so big. It's just all this tax money we're sending them. It's like income tax and spirit tax.
Beautiful Canberra fans we have.
I love it. Okay, so how did you guys land on gin then? Because you said like it was prior to the boom, and if it's taking you back to say Prohibition and Prohibition in the US is 1920s, and they were making this bathtub gin, and they were adding all these different kinds of like kerosene and tobacco spit, just really rolling it out. Yes. Obviously, you guys aren't doing that to any of your products, but are we? How did you guys land on gin?
Look, I guess for me personally, I'm a designer. So as a designer, and I this is where the parallel happens with my creativity and Hugh's creativity is, I think, the creativity embedded in gin is much broader than it is in almost any other spirit. Where we have juniper, and in Australia we're not really bound by any of the notional rules of making a London dry gin. So we have juniper, and then we have this veritable cornucopia of different botanicals we can use.
And I think that's just it, right? Like when Prohibition started back in 2015, it really was at the birth of this second big craft spirits revolution, at least in Australia. So we were the seventh distillery to get a license in South Australia. There's 150 registered now, more than 700 across the country. In our one tiny state. I think that means there's one every 3 houses. But
everyone knows the distillery.
Yeah, exactly right. But I mean, what's so exciting is all of a sudden the rule books were thrown out. We didn't have to be purchasing fairly classical spirits from large multinational brands anymore. The fact that we were able to draw upon like classics from England, interesting like cocktail takes from the US, and then also from our own local agriculture, but also our own like native produce and flora. It's just it was so exciting.
And it still is.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still discovering new things that we have to use.
All the time. All the time.
So take us from start to finish, a typical day for you guys working at the distillery. Just because I know gin is such a fast-produced spirit. Like we're talking from say still to bottle in 24 hours in some cases.
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly possible. I mean, Adam and I, when we say we work in parallel, it's quite literal, right? So the still was right behind us here, and Adam's office, is just right here. So,
10 samples through the window. That's all I'm hearing.
Exactly right. We need one of those like cats. So a still run for us will begin the day before. Yep. So we pre-macerate most of our botanicals most of the time. We'll steep it in a big alcohol solution of ethanol and water, and then we'll move it into the still the next day. For ethanol, we use a really, really incredible upcycled grape spirit from the Barossa Valley. So I just love this. So upcycled winery wastage, so grape marc and grape lees that are then fermented for all their residual sugars after the winemaking process, turned into vodka. So really, really, really sustainable way to source fermentable sugars, and it creates a really, really beautiful. I often describe the base spirit as a canvas that we'll then botanically paint on top of. So we'll steep everything. We'll wait 20 hours. We'll fire up the still the next day, heat it up, and then we'll begin running the still. The still for us has multiple components. We do botanical changeovers throughout the run. We both pot still and vapor infuse.
You can see everything behind us there.
You can see our pot.
Yes, your pot still, and then I see your classic column still as well there.
Yeah,
make sure my eyesight isn't getting bad.
No, that's it. You bang on. So we'll do that. And then while we could proof it down really quickly, we choose to proof it down slowly. So over a number of weeks, we'll let that rest for a number of weeks, and then we'll bottle it and then let it rest again for a number of weeks. I find that gin, but really any spirits, we've dabbled in a little bit of whiskey and some other aged stuff, and we see similar things where, I'm sure you've heard people talk about bottle shock, but also spirits get shocked when proofing or just getting agitated too much, and it might taste really good, it might taste really bad, it might taste good, bad, and that line kind of gets smaller and smaller as it kind of edges out towards the middle. So giving ourselves and our customers, they know when they open a bottle it's been rested, and it's at as good as it's going to be, and it's going to hold there.
For many years.
Yeah, for many years.
It's an interesting take on it, because I haven't really come across, say, distilleries slowly proofing things down to a finer level. Since I predominantly talk with whiskey distilleries, they're just everything's coming out at, say, 62.5%, and they'd be adding water to that in the bottling stage, as opposed to when you're, I guess, slowly proofing it down to create a finer.
Sure. I think interestingly, there are some producers, I think it's either cognac or Armagnac, and they'll age their brandy for 20 years. And over the course of that 20 years, they'll slowly proof it down within the barrel. So you just get this really lovely homogenization where your water is integrated with the spirit and it's all aged together. So I really,
That's quite logical.
Yeah, but it is really logical for the highest point of flavor, but it is tougher. Yeah, well, barrels cost a lot of money.
Yeah, of course.
Don't they?
Yeah.
So, and also, I think, Hugh will talk a lot more to this than I will, but we are always trying to maximize the amount of oil content and therefore the amount of flavor in every gin we make.
This is true.
You're really cutting close to the wire in terms of, as you're diluting, trying not to have the product looshing or clouding. So the longer it takes to proof it down, and Hugh will be able to clarify me on this one, the less chance of it just going straight to cloudiness. And therefore, we're actually, managing to keep more oil than if we just bashed it with water and said, right, that's done.
That's very true. That's a really, really good point.
So how do you guys find keeping that fine balance without sending it too cloudy? You said is there a period of time you do it? Because you said you do it over a number of days. Is there obviously there's a fine art to it?
Depends on the gin, depends on the ABV.
It does. It depends on the weather. So if it's colder and the groundwater is cooler, we have to proof it down over a longer period of time, because we really feather that edge, because we always began not just this business, but every single product is any spirit has to taste good by itself. And we speak a lot about martini drinking and that kind of thing. So oil content being at the absolute maximum, which is the thing that will cause it to loosh, is just so paramount. So yeah, it does depend on product to product and weather and all sorts of things. But sometimes you just have oops, guess we have to wait a while for that too.
Yeah. You cut it so close, and then you just have to let it sit and acclimatize for a while. Heat it up.
Yeah, it's been done.
Too.
Yeah.
Heat the room up to remove.
I might wind it back a sec then. You're so I'll take you back to the juniper. So just in case, I guess, people don't know, how do you typically make gin? So I guess if people know it's juniper, and then you're talking about the London Dry style. From memory, is it 70% for London Dry, or is it 80%? I can't remember what the classification is for London.
So in London Dry in the EU, I believe they don't talk about percentages. I could be wrong about that, but I believe they speak about predominant juniper flavor or profile. Because if you speak about botanic weight just by itself, the method of extraction could be so different that would drastically change. Yeah, exactly. So here in Australia, we're not bound by those rules that exist in the EU. Obviously, we have spirits regulations surrounding things like whiskey and rum and brandy, and we do for gin as well, but they're much broader, and it's basically just refers to ABV. It has to be above 37%. So for those who are playing along at home who don't know, gin is basically a neutral alcohol, so vodka, that has been flavored with herbs, spices, fruits, with juniper being a really key component. We really try to keep juniper at the forefront of everything that we do. It is by far the most of any botanic that we use by 10 times. Yeah.
All of our juniper is sourced from northern Macedonia. I think you'd find lots of distillers in Australia are actually getting their juniper from the same place, which seems random, but it's not at all random. It's just is truly the best place to get it from. And then, from there, I mean, we're building up profiles with things like coriander seed, and then root ingredients like angelica root or ginger, and then we'll balance citrus elements where it might be traditional or more Australian native citrus, and then you've got spice elements. So it's always this balancing act.
Yeah, and so if you have, I suppose, this kind of like baseline of for things to have backbone that makes it recognizable as gin, it doesn't just require juniper, it does require these other kind of structural elements, and then on top, that's when we get to really have fun and we start adding, I don't know, weird and wild and wacky things. We've distilled a crab before.
Can you take us through that? And what kind of led you to distill a crab? Like,
well, it did. I mean, it didn't work out.
no, you're like, otherwise it'd be selling, right? I'm sure there's a market for it.
We were working with a Michelin guided restaurant in Singapore to produce a custom product for them. And the national dish of Singapore is chili crab. So we thought this kind of like gastronomy, thing that we tried. It didn't come together. Even in that, there's so many ways you can attack that. So you could just, when you distill a crab, do you distill a whole crab? Is it raw? Is it cooked? Is it crab meat? Is it crab shell? So even just in that one instance, there's so many different ways to kind of attack that single. I don't really want to call a crab a botanic, but like,
it does show how far you can push the flexibility and the creativity around what we do. Not everything works, and that's the point. You try new things all the time, and then we have a library of like we were talking about Australian natives, like this. 1,000 Australian natives that are edible that you can call on, and a lot of them express flavors that you can't find anywhere else in the world. Which is
how do you guys decide on what kind of makes the cut and what doesn't, like from a botanical side of view, and then from like an end product?
Well, it can kind of start from at two different points. Either you find a really interesting profile or combination of profiles and you're like, let's build something out towards that sounds really interesting, that's something I'd like to drink. Or we see either a gap in our folio or a gap in the market, and we work backwards from there. But what we'll do with that is, if we're going to see a gap in the market, we won't just fill it in the most obvious way. We'll always try to, again, fill it with the most interesting things that are kind of equivalent, right?
If we want to work within a category, it's trying to find something new and different that hasn't been done within that category. So it's always got a reason to exist, I guess, within our range and within the world of gin.
Exactly right.
Do you find your customers gravitate more towards certain like botanicals, or is it like they enjoy weird and wonderful things you guys are whipping up?
Fair mix of customers. I mean, we've got 10 plus different gins, and when I say different, they're wildly different from each other. So what I always find interesting is we could do a tasting around this table here with 10 customers, and they would pick 10 different gins that they like. You know, that's the interesting thing about gin drinking, is that everyone has different taste buds. There is no set and forget. So we find that when we do a tasting with, say, 4 people, it's not unusual that all 4 will pick 4 different gins that they liked as their favourite. So in that sense, there is no predominant sort of our customers generally like this or that, but our customers will sometimes lean towards something that's higher ABV, because we tend to do higher ABV well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we know that we can do interesting things with high ABV, but also, we've got gins that lean more towards Australian natives, where some customers will drive that direction, and others, like we're drinking our Fieldland Shiraz gin here. A lot of people love that gin because you don't even have to technically be a gin lover to enjoy that.
Absolutely. Sugar is the great moderator of people's drinking
Fruit
habits,
sugar,
right? Yeah, of course.
Of course, yeah.
All
sugar.
All fruit sugar, but like it is, the breadth of our range is really, really distinctive. I mean, nothing is really built out of the same.
Every product is built from the ground up differently. So every botanical sort of structured differently. So it is a bit of it's something that we find important.
Yeah, certainly.
And then creatively, the studio is here, so we're often designing a gin based on the storytelling from the packaging on one side of this wall, and then what goes in the bottle on the other side of the wall. And that's a regular process.
And I mean, I think that's something that we're so fortunate in having, is like the products as a result feel so cohesive, because they're not built. They're built in the same 10 meters of each other.
We don't farm out the packaging design to an external agency. It's done in-house, and it's done. That design process starts right at the conception of the spirit itself as well. Yeah, so it is very cohesive. The other thing I guess worth noting is we make a range of other spirits. So yes, we're sitting in a room here with whiskey aging, but also we have Hugh's working on. Say that. Yeah. Hugh's working on an Amaro today, which is a new creative project. So
glorious.
That's like clean slate. What would we want the best Amaro in the world to taste like? Let's just go for it and make one. So that's the breadth of creativity that we sort of get to. Who gets to play around with. And then
we all do.
Yeah,
we all do.
Actually, yes. I'd say that like I wasn't in that tasting.
Yeah.
But also, we make a range of liqueurs, and there's a lot of creativity that you can throw into liqueurs as well these days, right? And really sort of exploring what hasn't been done and what's new, and what are the gaps in that market.
Absolutely right.
Cool.
So how are you guys balancing like innovation with your current distilling practices, like when you're creating all these new products?
The folio just keeps getting bigger. Yeah.
Well, we find a way to keep Hugh working on new and creative things by finding new projects to throw them at, if that makes sense. So, we're building another one for a client in Singapore now. We're building one for or a couple of other projects that are in the works, where it's like, right, here's a project, let's get a brief and create a new product for that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's never tough to balance all these things, even though it can be a lot of like individual moving parts. But as the business grows, our team grows with it. We have a really great support and like system built within the business. I mean, speaking of one of the really exciting projects we did recently, this is something that I fell in love with, and I think we all collectively did, there is been this glass artist exhibiting in the Adelaide Botanic Gardens for the last 7 months. This is a studio called Chihuly Studios. They're from Seattle. massive installment, like 12 shipping containers of glass sculptures. It was wild.
It's huge.
So we worked with them and the Adelaide Botanic Gardens to build this kind of like collaborative gin project where these all these glass sculptures are like bright and colorful and weird and like
huge.
Yeah, it was wild pieces of art. If anyone hasn't seen them, give them a Google. And then we worked with the horticultural team at the Adelaide Botanic Garden, so we were able to find plants that don't necessarily have traditional agricultural kind of ways to market. So things that we couldn't just buy, we'd have to go. I'd go in with a Coles shopping bag and a pair of secateurs, and source these really incredible, like rare, unique plants. So I suppose for us, balancing is like, well, we could either do that or not do that, and it's like, well, let's pick the fun option, and we just keep stacking them on top of each other.
Yeah, and building on that, I mean, Dale Chihuli's he's the world's most renowned glass artist because it's a niche field, but the creativity of Chihuly Studio in Seattle, the team came out here. So we were working with them also on the packaging. It's the first time Chihuly Studio have worked with an alcohol brand to co-brand a product, and they're very protective of their brand. So
amazing.
Even from the packaging side, it was an exciting project to work with a world-renowned artist and create something that they were really happy with. These opportunities don't come around that often, but we're always first to put our hand up and say, we'd love to be part of that.
Yeah.
So creativity, I think, is absolutely part and parcel with what we're about.
I was listening to you talk, and you're talking about the packaging itself. How important is a well-designed package to your customers? I know, like myself, coming from a whiskey background, consumers love a pretty box to store their whiskey in. They clearly don't want to drink it. They just want to put it on a shelf and just leave it up there, look at it, whatever. As you can clearly see behind me, I obviously don't like drinking, but they love like a beautiful piece of glass. Like I'll see, I'd say, vodka bottles with like glass dragons in the bottom. Would you guys typically lean towards, I guess, something a little bit more ornate when you're picking like a bottle, if you're working with a particular glass manufacturer? Or
we have been working with the same glass manufacturer since we started, and they're based in France. They're very good at what they do. Lots of spirit brands will work with the same manufacturer because there's very few factories in the world that will make glass to the standard that we need. But when we set out around designing the packaging, I mean, firstly, like I said, I'm a designer, so I'm going to be fairly fussy.
That's good.
Also, that's a good thing. But also, I think this notion of looking different. When we first started creating the product, I remember reaching out to the ATO and saying, right, okay, so just out of interest, how many people are applying for new licenses at the moment? And the number was 20, and I was shocked, and I was
no one.
I can't believe it. There's going to be 20 more brands coming to the market. So this packaging is going to have to really stand out on the shelf and really be very different. And so we did. We went way out over here. So everyone was using the sort of now ubiquitous Oslo bottle. It was a very common way to present gin. That's what gin looks like. It's in that bottle. We went completely the other way, because we thought that 20 more brands was going to be a lot of competition. Now,
it's nothing.
Wine forward almost 10 years, that's a microcosm of the extra competition out there. There's 50 times that, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're there. Yeah.
So the point being that I guess that differentiation that we had back in 2015 has kept us looking different ever since, which is important. But we're constantly working on evolving the packaging. There is a project in the works now evolving our packaging to be just always looking different and behaving different, so that it stands out on the shelf. They say that the packaging buys the first product, or the first makes the first sale. So obviously, then the juice does the rest. But it is highly competitive, as we know, in bottle shops now. I'm looking at your back bar.
Don't worry about mine. Mine's all there.
It is highly competitive. So it's crucial to look different. And it's as a branding agency in here as well, we do work for other spirit brands, and it's sort of, if you don't have a story that sets you apart and you don't have packaging that stands out on the shelf, gosh, now, like, good luck.
Yeah,
it's a tough one.
Especially with like the circling back to the spirits price, it's hard not to mention it. It's like the 2% increases every 6 months, and it becomes a big price war then, because you either have to be like the cheapest or the best, but people have to try your juice to essentially go, is it going to make it on my shelf?
Yeah, and I mean, we have to acknowledge within that as well that it is not just a tough, you don't want to be caught in a race at the bottom, you don't want to be caught in the middle of the pack, but it's a cost of living crisis at the moment. So we would be blind to not acknowledge that while being like a super premium product. So these are all factors that, and I think if you begin a spirit brand, really deciding on your lane, and even if you have multiple like sub brands or whatever, but deciding where they sit and running at that thing, like what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and we're looking at hyper premium, the best quality, no compromise in packaging, liquid, gifting opportunities, occasion drinking, rather than the race to the bottom, which just doesn't interest us.
No.
Well, it's funny you said you'd like pick one lane and go, well, you pick, I guess, a few lanes and go hard at it. You said you're making a Morrow and you're making whiskey at the moment.
Yeah, this is true.
So that's obviously majority of distillers that want to make whiskey, they typically make gin first. Obviously, you guys are a gin forward company now foraying into whiskey. Can you guys touch on your whiskey at all?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I feel for us, whiskey is it's a passion project, right? So we are first and foremost a gin brand, but we're also like a premium craft distillery. So we use super high quality barrels. We're 100% pale malt champagne yeast, aging it for as long as it needs. Our next release will be about 5 years old, in lots of different like small format, larger format barrels. But that's like an expression of what we do, almost in like an artistic way, but it's not the catch-all of the brand.
So it's incredibly limited release. It sits at a high price point because it is very small quantity, but the quality of the product is there. And I like to refer to it as it's like an heirloom product for our brand, where it sort of sits at very small availability, and it is. Yeah, it's a little self-indulgent, but not too self-indulgent.
Yeah.
I think our brand fans love that we make a whiskey, and they love that it is a really quality product, and they do. I guess we have a very keen, particularly our direct and subscriber audience, where they buy a lot of things that we do, and they'll fill an entire table with their Prohibition products at home. But they also know that if we're going to release something, it's going to be good.
And that's the trust that we develop there's the afforded to us by, if we are going to sit at a particular kind of price bracket and present in a particular way, that it all needs
to have to deliver on it.
Yeah.
Well, you guys were saying barrels are expensive. What barrels are you guys actually using? Like, because I assume you're doing like a barrel-aged gin, and then you're doing your whiskey as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, all sorts. For our barrel-aged gin, we use barrels that are ex Irish or Scotch whiskey that then get used in the Barossa as Shiraz barrels before we take them, turn them into 100-liter barrels. Actually,
Yes.
so yeah, they're bourbon, then they're Scotch, then they're Shiraz, and then we turn them into 100-liter barrels and char the living daylights out of them, and then age some gin in them for up to 4 years. But we have a stack of really interesting other barrels like ex Chardonnay, ex Brandy, ex Cognac. One of my favorites at the moment is we have one that is it's an 80-year-old port barrel from Sepersfield, and a lot of the time with like port or tawny barrels is they'll be kind of seasoned with port or tawny, but they don't have the time to sit in there. They're really hard to get, barrels like that. And there was something really special when we were talking to our cooper about it, and he was like, "Where did you get this? They do not make barrels like this anymore." And it was a special thing to kind of touch on, and it feels different. So all over the place, in short.
Yeah,
Well,
but
since
when
you
you're
guys-
recoupering a barrel from 200 litres down to 100 litres, you're putting a lot of love and time and attention into each barrel. But we do that very deliberately for the character that's going to deliver and the timber contact.
There's something that I like to share with people. So we've used a number of different coopers. Our current cooper is done, well, not our sole current cooper, but one of the cooper that does all of our Shiraz barrels. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying, is they don't. So we ask for 100-liter barrels. None of them are 100 liters. And I love that because the barrel is just the size that it needs to be to kind of work and fit together. Like some of them will be 95, some of them will be 90, some of them will be 105, but they all just, it's a touch and feel.
Craftsmanship.
Yeah,
of course.
absolutely. Which is something that
nice.
is just endearing.
We'd have to because all those staves are going to be different sizes, right? So, it's definitely not going to be a perfect 100 liters every time.
No, of course. And I wouldn't want it to be. I love just these guys just hanging out with a planer and just like looking at it and being like, they know how it all goes together.
Yeah,
have you tried to do it before? It's really hard.
The closest thing I've done to that is torching a barrel, but other than that, it's
no, the actual the timber craftsmanship it's pretty wild. So that's sort of I guess a microcosm of a creative day around here. So we're either designing things that go on the outside of a bottle, designing the spirit that goes on the inside. Then there's manufacturing core products, but we would have probably 5 new gins and random spirits in the works at any given time. So Hugh's sort of, some of them will sit and percolate for a while. Others, like the Amaros, lots of iterations of different botanicals and how we sort of blend that. So each of them very different, but I mean, for us, the exciting part is having the opportunity to be able to do something new and different.
Well, have you guys found, because obviously the most exciting thing about, I'd say, the last 12 months for me watching you guys is going through a capital raise through crowdfunding. How did that go? How did you guys land on the decision to raise capital through, I guess, consumers, as opposed to going to a private equity company just to...
Sure. Yeah. Look, in full transparency, we tried multiple different routes, and we actually did sort of have private equity there and ready to go. And then you look at the I guess, what are the strengths of the brand that you've built, and when we actually sort of started to dig further into the crowdsourced funding model, we realized it's almost like we didn't know it, but we'd custom built this brand that was perfect for it, if that makes sense. So, we've got 15,000 subscriber base, which is now closer to 18 or 19,000 subscriber base.
Wow.
And I say subscriber base, database, but we have really rusted on fans and our gym subscription membership. And then we build these relationships with these people either at the festivals, which we do a lot of. So we really, even Hugh and I really try and get out to lots of the festivals and do lots of face-to-face time with people all over Australia, all over the world. And then, we build a brand that we're really passionate about, and we build this follower base. And then, people love our products, and they sort of, like say, they buy the bottle and they put it on the shelf, and some of them don't even crack it because they're just they're too in
so
love
obsessed with the brand. Yeah.
to drink it. Yeah. But then when you say, okay, well, what if we did throw this opportunity open to our fan base? What would happen? It's a fair jump off a cliff sort of moment, step off the cliff moment. But we were blown away, even more blown away than we ever expected to be, with what actually then came back in terms of that support. So as soon as we opened the door, we knew we'd done the right thing. But you really, you do always second guess yourself in terms of, yes, people might buy the product online, and we've got to really, the market is tougher than it's been in 35 years. And that was probably part of the investment thing is tricky. It's tricky to find people with just spare cash lying around that want to throw money into a business these days. So we knew it was sort of tough times to actually sort of ask people to put their hand in their pocket. But the response was incredible, and we had people calling to thank us for the opportunity to be able to invest. And we were sort of like, okay, I'm pretty sure it's meant to go the other way around. You.
But I think there's something that you really hit on there, right? Is like there is something really special about the democratization of I don't know, something that is like locally endearing. It's like kind of like we're a co-op now. We people being able to be like, yeah, I've got a little bit of this little gin brand in Adelaide, or come in and, people being like, oh, I'm part of this owner's thing, and you get a discount, and it feels like you're part of something because you are. And the amount of people that I'm sure you've had as well, but we've had come up to us and be like, hey, I invested in the thing. And man, it blows me away every time, and I get so excited. Yeah, and how excited I am to talk to them, and it's great. And so we now, as a side benefit of it for us and for everyone involved, is we now have 1,200 brand ambassadors out there all across the country who are feverishly into Prohibition. And
even more keen than they ever have been. So we've had people fly from Singapore to hang out at the bar with us that have invested. We've had people, find us at events, and so it is really, it's exciting for us, and it's refreshing for us to have that sort of two-way relationship. And I think for us it's we're going through a process now where we are. Tomorrow it goes out. We've got a survey that goes out to our shareholders that sort of sit in sort of a key bracket, for them to design their own gin that becomes sort of their owner's gin as part of the process. So, that's something that we have done previously with our subscriber base that has been really, really successful, where you've got a bunch of people that are really passionate about distilling that actually have quite good sort of they're mental skill sets on what they want in a gin. And then you amalgamate all of that, and we look at it and go, shit, that looks like a great gin. And then you make it, and then it wins an award in the Australian Distilled Spirit Awards.
Yeah, so the year that we won the Champion Australian Distiller at the Australian Distilled Spirit Awards, our highest rated gin was a gin designed by our subscriber base. And like, how cool is that?
It's amazing.
It's pretty incredible. And then we went on to win for the program of sort of laying that out, the process that we took through it. We won at the World Spirit Awards in London. We won best campaign marketing off the back of that structure. So
it all feeds each other, doesn't it? Like it does,
Will you guys find yourself diving back into that avenue when you touch back on those like pro subscriber base, if I could phrase it like that, your investors and you go, hey, let's come up with an idea for like another gin, say, or like a different spirit, or like a bottle of cocktail or something along those lines to release to the market?
Yeah, that's absolutely the strength of it, right? To circle back to, I mean, part of your original storytelling of Prohibition, if we're bringing people together to give them what they want, why don't we just ask them?
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it really is that very much that democratization. Look, for us, the crowdfund was wildly successful. So we raised just over $2.6 million, which for us is just huge,
massive money
to be able to do incredible things with. So it's the old adage of you have to spend money to make money, and the market is tricky out there, and there's things that we need to do, like expand into Sepersfield, we sort of touched on briefly. That was a key project within this. So we've got the funds to do that project properly, and there's export growth, and there's a whole sort of suite of projects that we do off the back of that. But it is true democratization of bringing in people to be part of it, to be able to do those things, which again, it all just sort of works.
Yeah.
I think we froze for a second.
Yep.
You back?
Drop that for a sec. We're good.
Oh, we're
Yeah,
back.
sweet.
Yeah, awesome.
But you did mention touching on Sepersfield. How are you guys utilizing this new location? Because like you guys are in peak wine country, essentially.
Certainly. Yeah.
Yeah, we're infiltrating.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, infiltrating is a great word for it. I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Infiltrating, but what's funny is that it was one of the oldest things in the Barossa. So it's a 150-year-old distillery out there that had been dormant for the better part of the last 60 years. So we're sort of bringing this amazing building back to life. It was a brandy distillery with like 36,000 litres of brandy tanks under the ground, and a 9,000 litre still, which is 10 times the size of this girl. So, pretty impressive scale thing. It was like world class at the time they built it. So really we're just scratching the surface on what's possible out there. So we've moved a big chunk of our sort of production from bottling through to
packaging, dispatch,
warehouse packaging there. And that's still barely making a dent on this building. So then we've got a whole customer sort of space that we're building out. So,
and that's one of the really exciting things that we will be able to invest into, because the bones of this building are absolutely incredible.
Gorgeous,
high ceilings, stone walls, big, beautiful 9,000 litre still in the middle of the room.
It's like incredible, like big Oregon timber beams. Like the structure is really, really solid. So it's solid bones, which is nice.
Yeah.
But it's also it's just a beautiful space, which is nice. What I think I like the most about it is we've done a pop-up setup up there, and it's been running as a pop-up for since October. Yeah, so but we do
real long pop-up. Yeah, I got you.
But it's good to live through the seasons as well, because it's sort of like, they say you buy a house, don't renovate it straight away. Like live in it until you know what you're dealing with, and then renovate it. So we're very much doing that. We haven't been through a year yet, but we're just getting into the cool of winter. But we ostensibly we do the same thing up there. So we're doing gin flights, but a gin flight there feels completely different to a gin flight here in the city. It's just that it shows the external influence has such an effect on how you're experiencing something. So it feels more relaxed, and it feels more.
Okay. Absolutely. I mean, there's gorgeous lawn area because it's Sepersfield, palm trees everywhere, and it's quiet and wildlife, and it's just beautiful.
How you're describing this building to me, like, screams peak Prohibition. Like, we're talking 150 years ago, a distillery in the middle of essentially nowhere, and it's like producing a spirit and I guess the giant beams. I assume it's a big brick building, right?
So it's part stone and part galvanized iron. So it's
even better. What do you?
it's awesome. Yeah. So the biggest part of the structure is galvanized iron, and it has this amazing 2, almost 3-story high stone sort of central sort of pillar of the building. And there's spaces up there that have incredible potential, like two-story ceiling height, really open.
Feels like you're in a cathedral, but it's actually where a condenser column was. But it's really amazing.
And the fact that the still is still intact, it's, I believe, the second oldest still intact, distillery in Australia. So I think it was Beanley was built before this one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Any others that were around that age have all been long since destroyed. So, it's proper history, which is cool.
It's crazy that you guys were able to obtain that piece of Australian history.
Well, that was the thing. I mean, we were literally looking for a production space, a shed, essentially. And it wasn't until we mentioned to the guys at Sepersfield, we're looking for a shed. They're like, we've got that old distillery that just sits out of the property and no one goes to. You wander in, you go, oh, wow. Okay,
yeah.
What happened?
And hats off to the guys at Sepersfield as well, who have, we had to put on a new roof and stuff. And so they've done some hard yards for us, and they're wicked to work with. So certainly worth checking that out. I hope you come to Adelaide and get to visit it, Jez.
Oh yeah, I'll absolutely make the trip down. I'd like any excuse to make a trip to Adelaide. Awesome. We do call it Radelaide for a reason. So
yes, absolutely.
Yes, we still do.
Was there any brandy kicking around in this old distillery? I'm sure it would have been harvested, but if there's these...
So there was hundreds and hundreds of bottles floating around in various states in this building, and none of them were in a good state. Underneath
incredible.
the cellar that is still inhabited by more spiders than bottles.
Ooh,
just opened the door, looked at it, and then closed the door.
Chamber of Secrets or something.
Are in this now, but it's pretty spectacular. It's pretty amazing stuff in there. So brandy, no.
Lots of wine, lots of 100-year-old bottles of wine. It smelled quite a lot like vinegar.
And the local chef is aging hamon in one of the underground. What do we call these things? So they're just
cellars,
catacombs.
But it's a cellar full of aging.
It's pretty scary if you don't know that, to wander into that room. There's a big leg on a hook hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah. Like, what is going on in here?
It's amazing. I'm on
that. Dungeon. I don't know. Gents, I might wrap you guys up there, but before we dip out of here, are you guys able to help me out with a couple of questions I have for you?
Let's do it.
Please.
All right. What is one of the weirdest gins you've ever tasted?
Oh, that is a good question.
I bring only my best questions. This
is not that we. It didn't taste that weird, but it was a strange thing to be able to try. At Atlas Bar in Singapore, they have historic gin. So you might be able to have a martini from 1925. So they'll have vermouth and Gordon's that is 100 years old.
I'm a huge fan of that. Let's go.
Yeah. So I mean that just as a for sure, but like that as a thing, and seeing what has changed, seeing what hasn't changed, as opposed to a crazy botanic. I think that's an interesting piece.
Yeah. Gosh, so many gins, so many. I always found anti-gin was a weird one. So I know we make green ant gin, and that's really tasty, but I've always found anti-gin just that really weird. So
who made that?
It's made by Cambridge, I reckon. So
is that the pheromone one?
No, that's a different one.
See, that sounds weird enough as it is. I'm like, pheromone gin.
It's black ants in the wall. But you taste it and you go, I'm not sure that I'm on board
With ants.
Yeah, these particular ants. I mean, we've got tasty ants. These are not so tasty.
Yeah,
ants.
right.
Anyway, there you go. But yeah, no, I think that's the thing. There's so many weird and wonderful things that people are doing, which is,
as you guys said, it's just constantly pushing that boundary of like trying like
it
crab, right? Who'd be making steam crab gin?
Yeah.
is.
God.
Do
Yeah.
It's not my
but it
top
does
5
come
gins,
back to my
but
other rule, which is just because you can doesn't mean you should.
That's
yeah,
it.
that spot on. Your go-to gin cocktail.
I mean, a martini or a gimlet. Actually, I take that all back. A Negroni. A Negroni.
Oh, I was gonna make a Negroni tonight because I'm a big Boulevardier fan. And I was like, I got gin, but I ended up going the classic gin and juice because I was like Death Row Records.
Yeah, OG, man.
Love that.
Yeah, it's
Great OG. I'm such a sucker for a gimlet. Anyone that knows me, that So our Navy strength gin was secretly very, very geared towards the perfect gimlet. It's gimlet for me all the way. But yeah, martini, a good martini, it's very hard to beat. Atlas,
and
bloody good martini.
It's true.
Yeah.
Prohibition Gin's best cocktail. What do you guys think it is?
I think that would be hard to go past a
Juniperus martini.
Yeah, Juniperus martini. So this gin for us has been our most awarded gin. We've just picked up double gold in San Fran for the second year in a row with it. Australia's best gin at the world. Australia's best London Dry at the World Spirits Awards last year. 3 years in a row at the Royal Australian Spirit Awards. Best gin. It is so balanced, and then once you move it into a martini, life just makes sense.
Yeah. Like rich oil content, 47%, which is punchy for a martini, but it's destined for it.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. And final question, if you guys could share a delicious pour of your Navy strength gin with a historical figure, who would it be?
Oh, that is a great question.
As I said, I'm bringing my A game. Can't word.
I bring your A game. Hemingway.
Hemingway.
That is a superb answer, Mr. Carpenter.
I've hung out at his house in
Have you really?
in the Florida Keys.
Yeah, have fun.
Cool spot.
Yeah, I love that. I would love to hang out. Oh, there's so many interesting historical figures, but a lot of them I don't want to hang out with.
That would probably be the reason. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I could pretty happily smash a Navy strength with Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, now we're cooking.
Yeah,
I'm all about it. Well, Adam, Hugh, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight.
No, thanks for having us on. We really appreciate it. Let's stay in touch.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% will. Do you gents want to plug your socials and everything else Prohibition related?
At Prohibition Liquor, pretty easy. Look us up at a festival around Australia.
We're constantly touring. We're like Taylor Swift, like that. If you guys do ever come to Adelaide, we are in the CBD.
Yeah.
We're on the tram line. We're 10 minutes from the airport.
Come and hang out with Hugh and Mary doing her thing over here.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I'm hearing it now. It's Prohibition Liquor, the Errors Tour.
With or without crap. Awesome.
Thank you so much for hanging out. I do appreciate it. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your night. And yeah, do you know what?
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All the best. Thanks, Jez.
You guys.
Bye.